In the heart of a small village where the red earth meets the endless sky, there lived a girl named Amara. Her name meant grace in the old tongue, but grace seemed to have abandoned her long ago. The sun had barely kissed the horizon when the shouting began again. "You worthless child! Look what you've done now!" The voice belonged to Kasai, Amara's stepmother, whose heart had turned to stone the day she married Amara's father. Amara cowered in the corner of their modest hut, her thin frame trembling as Kasai's hand rose high above her head. The clay pot lay shattered on the floor, its pieces scattered like the fragments of Amara's shattered childhood. "I didn't mean to," Amara whispered, her voice barely audible above the morning wind that rustled through the acacia trees. "You never mean to, yet trouble follows you like your own shadow." Kasai's eyes blazed with a fury that seemed to burn hotter than the midday sun. The girl's father had died 2 seasons ago, leaving behind only debts and a daughter who reminded Kasai daily of a love that was never hers. Outside their hut, the village was beginning to stir. Women balanced water jugs on their heads as they walked to the well, their colorful wraps swaying with each graceful step. Children's laughter echoed from the compound next door, a sound that had become foreign to Amara's ears. But inside the small dwelling, only pain lived. Kasai raised her hand again, and Amara closed her eyes, bracing for the familiar sting. But the blow never came. "What is happening here?" The voice was deep, weathered like old leather, and carried the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. Amara opened her eyes to see a tall figure filling their doorway. The morning light created a silhouette against the man's broad shoulders, and as he stepped forward, she could see his face clearly. It was Kofi, the wealthy farmer from the neighboring village. His clothes were finer than anything Amara had ever seen, woven with patterns that spoke of prosperity and respect. His dark skin gleamed with the health of a man who ate well and worried little about his next meal. "This is none of your concern," Kasai snapped, though her voice had lost some of its earlier venom. Even she knew better than to openly disrespect a man of Kofi's standing. Kofi's eyes moved slowly from Kasai's raised hand to Amara's cowering form. He had seen enough in his 60 years to recognize the signs of a child who had known too much suffering. The girl's arms bore the faint marks of old bruises, and her eyes held that hollow look he had seen in the eyes of beaten animals. "I can hear your voice from 3 compounds away," Kofi said calmly, his gaze never leaving Amara. "The whole village can hear your voice." Kasai's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and anger. "She broke my best water pot. The only one my mother left me before she passed. And so you would beat her? She needs to learn. She needs discipline." Kofi stepped closer, and Amara noticed how the man's presence seemed to fill the small space. There was something different about him, something that made even Kasai lower her hand to her side. "There are many ways to teach a child," he said quietly. "Beating is the way of those who have no wisdom." Amara watched this exchange with growing wonder. No one had ever spoken to Kasai this way before. No one had ever stepped between her stepmother's anger and her own fragile body. "You think you can come into my home and tell me how to raise my child?" Kasai's voice rose again, but there was uncertainty in it now. "Your child?" Kofi's eyebrows rose slightly. "I knew her father, Kwame. He was a good man." A silence fell over the hut like a heavy blanket. Amara's heart quickened at the mention of her father's name. So few people spoke of him anymore, as if his memory had been buried with his body. "This girl," Kofi continued, his voice growing softer as he looked at Amara, "she has her father's eyes." Amara felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. It was small and fragile, like a seedling pushing through drought-hardened earth, but it was there. Kwame would weep to see how his daughter is treated. Kasai's face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare speak of my husband. You know nothing of what it's like to care for a child who brings nothing but trouble. I know what it's like to see potential where others see burden." Kofi reached into the leather pouch at his side and withdrew something that made Amara gasp. Silver coins. More money than she had ever seen in one place. The metal caught the morning light streaming through the doorway and seemed to dance in Kofi's weathered palm. Don't hurt her, he said, his voice carrying a weight that made even the air in the hut seem to still. Sell her to me. The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Amara felt her world shift beneath her feet. Sell her? Like a goat or a sack of grain? Keisai's eyes widened, her gaze fixed on the silver coins. Amara could practically see the calculations running through her stepmother's mind. How much food those coins could buy. How much easier life would be without another mouth to feed. How simple it would be to be free of the daily reminder of her husband's first love. You want to buy her? Keisai's voice was barely a whisper now. I want to give her a chance at life. Kofi's eyes met Amara's across the small space. In them, she saw something she had almost forgotten existed. Kindness. My farm is large, and I have no children of my own. A girl like this, with proper care and guidance, could flourish like a well-tended garden. Amara's mind raced. Was this truly happening? Could she really be free of Keisai's anger, of the daily fear that had become as constant as breathing? But what did it mean to be sold? What kind of life awaited her in the home of this stranger, however kind his eyes might seem? How much? Keisai asked, and Amara's heart sank at the eagerness in her stepmother's voice. Kofi counted out the coins slowly, deliberately. Each piece of silver made a soft chiming sound as it joined the others in his palm. Enough to live comfortably for many seasons, he said. Enough to start over. The morning sun had climbed higher now, casting long shadows across the hut's dirt floor. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed, and Amara realized that this moment, whatever it brought, would divide her life into before and after. Before, when she was trapped in this cycle of fear and pain. And after. After was still unwritten. Keisai reached out her hand, her fingers trembling slightly as they approached Kofi's palm. The silver coins seemed to call to her like water to a woman dying of thirst. But just as her fingertips brushed the metal, a voice called out from beyond the doorway. Keisai! What's all this commotion? It was Mama Asha, the village elder, her bent form appearing in the entrance like an ancient guardian spirit. Her eyes, clouded with age but sharp with wisdom, took in the scene before her. The cowering girl. The woman with her hands stretched toward silver. The wealthy farmer standing between them like a bridge between two worlds. What bargain are you making here, Kofi? Mama Asha asked, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen 8 decades pass like seasons. And in that moment, as 3 adults stood frozen in their intentions, Amara realized that her fate hung in the balance of whatever came next. Mama Asha's presence filled the small hut like the weight of ancient wisdom itself. Her walking stick, carved from the wood of the sacred baobab tree, tapped against the hard-packed earth as she moved closer to the frozen tableau. Keisai's hand still hovered over Kofi's palm, the silver coins catching the light like captured stars. I asked you a question, Kofi, Mama Asha repeated, her clouded eyes somehow seeing everything with perfect clarity. What bargain brings you to this house of sorrow so early in the morning? Amara watched from her corner, hardly daring to breathe. She had heard stories of Mama Asha's wisdom, how she could see into the hearts of people and judge their true intentions. If anyone could save her, it would be the elder. But if anyone could also seal her fate forever, it would be her too. Kofi straightened his shoulders, meeting the old woman's gaze with respect. I offer to take the girl into my household, he said simply. To give her a life free from this. His eyes moved meaningfully toward the shattered pottery on the floor, toward Amara's bruised arms. Mama Asha's weathered fingers tightened on her walking stick. And you, Keisai? She asked, her voice carrying the weight of judgment. You would sell your husband's child like a market goat? Keisai's face flushed deep red, anger and shame roaring in her expression. She is not my blood, she spat. I never wanted her. She brings nothing but trouble to my house. Your house. Mama Asha's voice rose slightly. This was Kwame's house. His father's house. His grandfather's house. The old woman moved closer to Amara, her bent form somehow radiating protection. And this child carries the blood of all those who came before. Amara felt tears prick her eyes at these words. For so long, she had felt like nothing more than an unwanted burden. To hear someone speak of her connection to her ancestors, to her place in the long chain of family, made something deep inside her chest flutter with hope. Blood means nothing when there is no food to eat, Keisai retorted. When there are no coins for medicine or new clothes. She gestured toward Kofi's silver. This man offers freedom for both of us. Freedom from each other. Kofi watched this exchange with careful eyes. He had not expected the village elder to appear, but he was not displeased by it. Mama Asha was known throughout the region for her fairness. If she approved his offer, no one could question his motives later. And what kind of freedom do you offer this child? Mama Asha asked, turning her attention fully to Kofi. What place would she have in your household? She would be cared for, Kofi replied. Fed well, clothed properly. She would learn the skills she needs to become a woman of worth. Skills? Mama Asha's eyebrows rose. What skills do you speak of? Kofi hesitated for just a moment. In that brief pause, Amara felt her heart skip. What exactly did this kind stranger want from her? She would help with my farm, he said finally. Learn to manage a household. Perhaps even learn to read and write, if she shows aptitude for it. Reading and writing. Amara's eyes widened. Such things were rarely offered to girls, especially girls without family to pay for schooling. The possibility seemed too wonderful to be real. And when she comes of age? Mama Asha pressed. What happens to her then? She would be free to choose her own path, Kofi said. With a dowry appropriate to her station. Keisai made a sound of disbelief. A dowry? For her? Every girl deserves the chance to marry well, Kofi said quietly. Every girl deserves dignity. Mama Asha nodded slowly, her eyes moving from Kofi to Keisai to Amara. The silence stretched like the shadow of a cloud crossing the sun. Child, she said finally, addressing Amara directly. Come here. Amara hesitated, glancing at Keisai. Her stepmother's face was a mask of impatience and barely contained rage. Go on, Keisai snapped. Don't waste the elder's time. On trembling legs, Amara rose and walked toward Mama Asha. The old woman's hand, dry and warm as sun-baked stone, cupped Amara's chin gently. Look at me, little one. Amara lifted her eyes to meet Mama Asha's clouded gaze. In those ancient eyes, she saw depths of understanding that made her want to weep. Tell me true, Mama Asha said softly. What do you want? The question was so simple, yet so complex. What did she want? For so long, Amara had focused only on surviving each day, on avoiding Keisai's anger, on making herself as small and invisible as possible. She had forgotten that she was allowed to want anything at all. I want to be safe, she whispered. I want to be somewhere I don't have to be afraid. Mama Asha nodded. And this man's offer? Does it feel safe to you? Amara looked at Kofi, studying his weathered face. There was kindness there, yes, but also something else she couldn't quite name. He was still a stranger, no matter how gentle his words. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know what it means to be safe anymore." The honesty in her words seemed to affect everyone in the small hut. Kofi's expression softened further, Keisai looked away uncomfortably, and Mama Asha squeezed Amara's hand gently. "Wisdom lives in honest doubt," the elder said. "Better to admit uncertainty than to pretend false confidence." She turned back to Kofi. "Your offer is generous, but the child speaks truth. How can she trust what she does not know?" Kofi considered this. "What would you have me do? Leave her here to suffer?" "I would have you prove your intentions," Mama Asha replied. "Let the girl come to your farm for 7 days. Let her see how you live, how you treat those who depend on you." She held up her hand as Keisai started to object. "If, after 7 days, she wishes to return, she returns. No silver changes hands. And if she wishes to stay? Then we will speak again of arrangements." Kofi nodded slowly. "This seems fair." But Keisai erupted in fury. "Fair? What's fair about making me wait for what's rightfully mine to decide?" Her voice rose to a shriek. "I am her guardian. I have the right to do what I think best." "You have the right to care for her welfare," Mama Asha corrected firmly. "Not to dispose of her like unwanted property." The tension in the hut had grown thick as storm clouds. Amara felt caught between all these adult voices, all these adult decisions about her life. But for the first time in months, she also felt something else. Someone was asking what she wanted. Someone was considering her feelings. It was a foreign sensation, like tasting honey after years of bitter herbs. 7 days, Mama Asha repeated. The girl will spend 7 days at Kofi's farm. Then she chooses. And what if I refuse? Keisai demanded. Mama Asha's clouded eyes seemed to pierce straight through her. Then the whole village will know that you care more for Silver than for the child's well-being. The threat was subtle but clear. In a small community where reputation was everything, such knowledge would make Keisai's life very difficult indeed. Kofi stepped forward. I accept these terms, he said. The girl can come today, if she wishes. See my home, meet my household. He looked directly at Amara. What say you, child? Will you take this chance? Amara felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes upon her. Keisai's filled with angry calculation. Mama Asha's with patient wisdom. Kofi's with something that looked like hope. The broken pottery still lay scattered on the floor around her feet. The bruises on her arms still ached. The memory of countless mornings filled with fear and pain still haunted her mind. But now there was something else. A doorway. A possibility. A chance to step out of the small hut of sorrow and see what lay beyond. Yes, she whispered. Then, louder, with more strength than she had felt in months, yes. I will come. Keisai made a sound of disgust and turned away. Mama Asha smiled for the first time since entering the hut. And Kofi nodded with what looked like satisfaction. Then gather what belongings you have, child, he said. We have a long walk ahead of us. As Amara moved toward the corner where her few possessions lay bundled in an old cloth, she heard Mama Asha speak quietly to Kofi. 7 days may seem like little time, the elder said. But sometimes 7 days can change everything. Outside, the sun had climbed higher, and the sounds of village life grew louder. Women called to each other across compounds. Children played games in the dust. The normal rhythm of life continued, unaware that in one small hut, a girl's destiny was shifting like sand in the wind. But as Amara tied her small bundle with trembling hands, she couldn't help but wonder what awaited her in this strange new place. Would Kofi's kindness prove real, or was it a mask hiding darker intentions? What kind of work would she be expected to do? And most frightening of all, what would happen if, after 7 days, she found the courage to choose a completely different path than either of the adults had imagined for her? The 7 days passed like pages turning in the book of Amara's life. Each morning brought new wonders she had never imagined possible. Kofi's farm stretched beyond the horizon, with fields of golden grain that danced in the breeze like waves on water. His compound was not just a collection of huts, but a small village unto itself. There were workers who smiled when they saw her. Women who taught her to weave baskets and grind grain without harsh words or raised hands. Children who played games with her in the evening light. For the first time in her memory, Amara went to sleep each night without fear of what the next day would bring. Kofi proved to be a man of his word. He was patient when she broke things, understanding when she flinched at sudden movements, gentle when she wept for reasons she couldn't explain. Healing, he told her on the 3rd day as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and gold, takes time. Like a garden recovering from drought. On the morning of the 7th day, Mama Asha arrived at Kofi's farm as the first light touched the acacia trees. Amara was already awake, sitting by the small pond where lotus flowers bloomed, their petals opening to greet the sun. She had been thinking about this moment for days. The choice that would determine the rest of her life. "Child," Mama Asha called softly, her walking stick tapping against the stone path as she approached. "The time has come." Amara rose and walked toward the elder, her heart beating like the wings of a caged bird. But it was not fear that filled her chest now. It was something else entirely. Certainty. "I have made my decision," Amara said, her voice clear and strong in the morning air. Kofi emerged from his house, having heard their voices. His face was calm, but Amara could see the questions in his eyes. The hope he tried to hide. The fear that his kindness might not have been enough. "Speak your choice, little one," Mama Asha said. Amara looked at Kofi, at this man who had shown her that kindness without cruelty was possible. Who had proven that not all adults wielded their power like weapons. "I choose to stay," she said. But not as property to be bought and sold. Both adults looked surprised at her words. "I choose to stay as family," Amara continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "If Kofi will have me as a daughter, not a servant. If he will teach me not just to work, but to read and write and think for myself." Tears gathered in Kofi's eyes in all his careful planning. He had not expected this. He had offered to buy her freedom, but she was claiming something far more precious. She was claiming her dignity. Her right to belong somewhere not as possession, but as person. "And if someday I choose to leave," Amara added, "to marry or to make my own way in the world, you will let me go with your blessing." "Child," Kofi said, his voice thick with emotion, "nothing would make me happier than to call you daughter." Mama Asha smiled, her weathered face creasing with joy. "Wisdom speaks through the mouths of children," she said. "The girl has chosen not just safety, but dignity. Not just shelter, but family." In the distance, they could see a figure approaching along the dusty path. Kasai, come to claim her silver and rid herself of her burden. But when she arrived and heard Amara's decision, her face twisted with confusion and rage. "Family?" She spat. "What family wants? Damaged goods? What family takes in another's refuse?" Kofi stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Amara's shoulder. "The family that sees worth where others see only burden," he said quietly. "The family that chooses love over convenience." He reached into his pouch and withdrew not the silver he had originally offered, but a single gold coin. More money than Kasai had ever seen. "For your trouble," he said simply. And for releasing her to where she truly belongs. Keisai snatched the coin with greedy fingers and stalked away without another word. She had gotten her payment, but she had lost something far more valuable. She had lost the chance to witness what love could grow from the seeds of compassion. As the sun climbed higher that 7th morning, Amara stood between Kofi and Mama Asha, no longer a child to be sold or traded. She was a daughter. She was family. She was home. And in the distance, the fields of grain swayed in the morning breeze, promising harvests yet to come, growth yet to be realized, and a future as golden as the sunrise itself. The girl who had once cowered in fear now stood tall in the light of a new day.